Back here on The Herd, let's welcome in a great guest, Albert Breer, senior NFL reporter, lead content strategist at the MMQB. He covered the NFL since 2005. I've known him for a long time. Albert's getting ready for a big summer with youth sports. Yeah, baby.
Yep,
you know you
right?
love it. So how's that going to impact all your travel? Because you got to go to 50 million camps, right?
Well, that's when my travel for youth sports ends. So I got like a month and a half full of lacrosse tournaments during vacation, and then and yeah, it'll be great. And then once I hit the road for the NFL season, which for, as you know, starts for me at the end of July, the summer's over and we're locked in and ready to go.
Yeah. Let me guess, your first stop is going to be Cleveland just because of Shedeur Sanders. Is that accurate?
I don't know. Like last year I started out there actually because there were 5 camps there. So LA is always a good place to start just because of the number of teams that are in that area. It's almost weird that, like, I mean, it was 10 years ago, there was no team there. And now it's become sort of a hub for training camps. I don't know. Like there are a couple teams that I think are really interesting going into the year. Like I think Buffalo has great opportunity in front of them. Like, so I look at them as being a super interesting team. Cincinnati, if the Trey Hendrickson thing is still hanging out there, you know, they got the receivers under contract, they'd be an interesting place to start. I do put some thought into where the first stop's going to be. So definitely have to think a lot about that one. But those would be a couple of the places that I think I'd look at.
All right, let's start with Cleveland because Shedeur Sanders is dealing with his father piping in now. And Deion went on a podcast, was kind of, he said it hurt him that his son slid in the draft, even though his son admitted it was his fault. Now, listen, some people are not happy with my take yesterday that Deion needs to kind of zip it, lock it, put it in his pocket. Yeah. Just don't talk about your kid anymore. I know that's tough for people to stomach, but that's kind of the reality, isn't it?
I agree. I mean, like, I think that's what it is. And like, look, like I know a lot of people have made a big deal out of, you know, what happened 21 years ago when Eli Manning forced his way from the Chargers to the Giants. And, you know, at the time, I think there was that concern out there. Is Archie going to be hovering over Eli's career? And, you know, who we didn't hear much from after Eli Manning became a Giant was Archie Manning. You know, you didn't hear much at all from him. And I think it's fine, you know, if dads want to be involved in the pre-draft process. And sometimes there are some things that go into it where, you know, a father's counsel can really help. But I think once they become pros, you know, it's an important thing for the parents to push away and let the kid be his own man. I mean, I still remember the Eli Apple thing getting dropped off, you know, at Giants training camp or mini camp or whatever it was, and how that stuck with him. I think this is a good opportunity for Shedeur Sanders to just say, hey, look, like now I'm just a random football player, you know, and I'm going to carry myself like somebody who's trying to make the team, who's trying to earn a paycheck, who's trying to win a job. And it becomes harder to do that if you've got voices around him speaking out. So I love Deion. I think he's done a great job at Colorado, but I'd agree with you. Like, I think this is time to let Shedeur be his own man.
And I know that's tough. We're both fathers. It's very difficult to not defend your kid when there's this nonsense going on. I get it. It's tough, but you know, he's 23. Help us settle a quick argument here on the staff. Dillon Gabriel. I'm not saying he's an NFL quarterback, but you know him very well from following college football. The fact that he was drafted by Stefanski in the 3rd round says something, correct? They didn't draft him to hold the clipboard.
He killed the draft process. I mean, that's what it says. And I've asked people about this, and I mean, I like, from what I understand, because that was higher than most people had him going. You know, when I asked around, both to people in the Browns organization and people outside the Browns organization, the way it happened is, here's a kid who played 6 years in college, who has a historic amount of reps in college, who won at 3 different schools, that went through and aced the pre-draft process, the meetings, the combine interview, all of that stuff. So that's why you look at it and you say, okay, like, here's a guy who can, you know, at the very least come in and be a functional backup, probably right out of the gate. And, you know, it really makes me think of Kevin Stefanski's own history. He won with Case Keenum in Minnesota. If you remember, they went to an NFC championship game. And that sort of strikes me as what Dillon Gabriel can be, like that Case Keenum, Chase Daniel. Like, I don't know if Dillon Gabriel will ever be a long-term starter, but right now, I would bet that he has a 10 to 15 year NFL career, even if it's not as a starter, because of all the experience he has, because of the traits that he has as an accurate, efficient quarterback, and because of his makeup, And so I think that's one of those, the ceiling may be low, but the floor is pretty high. And at that position, if you can have a cheap backup for the 4 years that they're on their rookie contract, it's not a bad floor for a player. Wow. When you're drafting someone in that range.
This is why Albert Breer is great. The Case Keenum Stefanski, that's damn good stuff. Hadn't heard that anywhere. Let me ask about, let's go to Frank Ragnow, retires kind of abruptly. I saw the Lions didn't draft a pure center. It sounds like they want to convert the Georgia guard into a center. Did the Lions anticipate this or have any clue what was coming?
Well, he hadn't been around, so they had an idea that there was a possibility something could happen, and they have Graham Glasgow and Tate Ratledge working at that position. Look, I think just as far as Frank goes, this guy was the ultimate pro, and I think it's a good development for players overall. I think for 3 reasons, right? J-Mac, I think number one, players have better information now on what football does to their bodies and the impact it could have on them long term, and what it might mean for them playing golf, shooting hoops with their kids when they're in their 40s and 50s. So they have more information. They also have more money, which gives you the freedom to make decisions like this. If you feel like you're in position where you're set up for life, you've got the flexibility to make a decision like that. And then number 3, I think a lot of these guys have a better idea of what they're going to do post-football, which can be a really hard thing for guys to detach from a game to which they've been identified from the time they were 8, 9, 10 years old. But in a lot of cases, they have better plans for post-football. So for those 3 reasons, I think we've seen more and more of these. The front end of it was Patrick Willis, Calvin Johnson, but since then it's happened more often. And so Ragnow walks away after 7 years. And again, I think it's from a global standpoint, a good development for players having the freedom to do this sort of thing. Obviously, it's not great for the Lions. So from that standpoint, I think you got to look at it and say that was the strength of the team. It's the foundation of their rebuild. It really was, what their rebuild was founded on in the first place. Ragnow and Decker were there when Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes got there. They drafted Penei Sewell right away. They had the best line in football the last couple of years. So, now I think the question becomes, can you maintain that as a strength? Decker's getting older. Ragnow's now gone. Penei Sewell is obviously a huge building block going forward, but can they be top of the league, or are they going to slip a little bit in a very important position group? We'll see. All
right, sticking in the NFC North, Albert, not career, but just heading into this season, rank the quarterbacks in that division for me. And I'm going to assume J.J. McCarthy is a starter in Minnesota.
Okay, so I would say you would have to go Jared Goff, number 1. Okay. I would say Jordan Love, number 2.
Ooh.
Caleb Williams, number 3.
What?
And Caleb Williams, number 3, and then J.J. McCarthy, number 4. Just based on track record and kind of where they are, I think that all 4 of them are in really good situations. So I think the baseline, and J.J. might be in the best one of the 4, but I think all 4 of them are in pretty good situations. And thanks, by the way, because I'm sure that'll get aggregated everywhere.
Yeah. You don't like fans. Michigan, guys. You don't like Michigan. What do you have against Michigan? All right, final question. Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan. We got about a minute. Unbelievable stat our staff came up with. The 49ers are 0-43 under Shanahan regular season when trailing by 8 or more in the fourth quarter. What on earth is the issue with Brock Purdy and Shanahan? Why can't they rally? Obviously, some of those games were Garoppolo and so forth.
Yeah, I would say that's sort of been the issue with the offense in general, is that so much of the strength of that offense is based on the marriage of the run game and the pass game, right? So much is making 8 different things all look the same. And it's incredibly hard to defend because you have to defend every inch of grass out there because of the way that the offense sets up structurally. So what happens when you're in 3rd and long, when you're in 3rd and 14, when you're in 3rd and 20, when the defense knows that you got to throw the ball down the field, when you're playing from behind and they know you need 2 or 3 possessions to come back? What happens is that marriage breaks down, because then the defense is going to be willing to give you more. in the run game. And this is something that guys from that system have really had to kind of work through. It's one of the reasons why Sean McVay wanted Matthew Stafford so badly 4 years ago, was because he knew that was a way to sort of break that element of being able to beat a Shanahan offense. Is if you get on top of them, it really puts them, it takes them, I would say it makes them fish out of water to some degree, you know? So I think that's the first thing when you ask that question, that kind of sticks out in my head. And then the other thing is, you know, just when you've got a younger quarterback, like generally that's what they're working through. It's what separates the great ones is, you know, how do you play on 3rd and long? How do you play when you're playing from behind? Anybody can look great when you're in 2nd and 4, when you're in 3rd and 1. What do you look like when it's 3rd and 14 and you're down 20? You know, obviously that's a big hurdle for most quarterbacks to clear when they're trying to go from good to great.
Great stuff. Albert Breer, Monday Morning Quarterback.